So here's Andy Reid from yesterday when the question of Eric Bieniemy comes up, because again, it's stay with the Chiefs, go to the Commanders, maybe outside shot, go to the Cardinals. Listen to what Andy Reid had to say, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I know you mentioned before in the past that you're pushing for him, but if not, I know he's on a one-year deal. So would you expect him to return? And if not, are you still trying to push for him to get the last few jobs remaining?
Yeah, I would tell you the first part of that I'd push him to, there's no reason he shouldn't get one of these jobs. So he's too good of a football coach not to.
The way he answers that, and look, I think he's at the point where he would like to cycle through to another coordinator. I think this is part of how you reward your guys for busting their ass. You create an in-house meritocracy where you show this shining example of what happens if you bust your ass. It's not just you're going to get more money, you're going to get a raise, you're going to get more responsibility, you're going to get a better title. The best of my offensive assistants becomes the coordinator when that coordinator graduates to something else, ideally a head coaching job. You got 5 years of Eric Bieniemy not graduating. We saw Mike Kafka had to leave to become an offensive coordinator. He went to the Giants and then was a head coaching candidate after 1 year. I think Andy Reid is at the point where he would like to have another offensive coordinator just to keep that pipeline moving, just to continue to have that thing you can use to get your staff to bust their ass every year and contribute to the overall creativity and the design and the implementation of the offense, because the best of the non-coordinators on the staff have the chance to be the coordinator and then the chance to become a head coach. So I feel like Reid is ready, and Reid's been ready to move on from Bieniemy, not because of Bieniemy, but because he wants that spot for someone else.
I would agree. I would think so. Of course, Eric Bieniemy, he was looking to move on. It probably adds to a little weirdness in the building that way, and then also to the same point of what you're making there, the head coach also just, hey, they get sick of hey, every year, is he going? Is he not? Is he going? Is he not? And that's another thing that plays into this. This is 3-4 years in a row where Andy has to answer these same questions, and it's tough. And I feel like he was a little even didn't know what to say there, because I'm sure I'm sure sitting there when he was answering that question already knew that Bieniemy was not going to be the head coach of the Cardinals or the Colts, but he couldn't say it. He wasn't going to be the one that breaks the news or do anything there, so he knew that. So he didn't know how to maybe answer that question in totality exactly. But I think for Eric Bieniemy, if he wants to be a head coach, I think the best thing would probably be for him to move on, like we talked about yesterday. So he doesn't get it's Andy Reid, or, it's really Patrick Mahomes or whatever, which is not fair. It's a bunch of BS. None of these other guys have ever had that issue, but Eric Bieniemy gets that for some reason. The Commanders thing, in a lot of ways, makes a lot of sense to me. They have young quarterback. We know this guy knows how to work with a young quarterback, and they got a receiving core that I would say is better than the Chiefs right now. I mean, McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, we saw a little of that last year. I mean, this Bieniemy could have them doing what we saw the other night. Zoom, 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 zoom. Fake to this guy. He could do all that stuff with this group. So I'd be all in favor of it, but I do think he, needs to move on if he does want to be a head coach at some point somewhere else.
By the way, the Commanders interviewed Greg Roman for the offensive coordinator position on Tuesday. Nothing scheduled with Bieniemy yet, but I go back to the text I got on Sunday from his agent. It was on the record. A lot of times I hear stuff from guys off the record, but I think that there's an urgency now and a concerted effort to try to get Eric Bieniemy into a good spot. It would be a good spot in Washington because, look, if Sam Howell ends up being great, I guess people could say, well, it's Sam Howell. It's not Bieniemy, but you can't say it's the head coach because the head coach is a defensive guy, not an offensive guy like we see in Kansas City. Again, it didn't keep Peterson and Nagy from becoming head coaches without Patrick Mahomes. What more can Eric Bieniemy do? It really is sad, and I've tried in the past to get to the bottom of it. The interview question, and I really do feel like at a certain level, owners don't want to be bullied or feel like they're being bullied by media and fans to hire someone. They don't want to create the impression to their peers that they gave in to the mob, to the people who were saying, you should go do this. We're going to do what we want, and we're going to resist this notion that someone is trying to get us to do something we don't want to do. But, they listen to the media, supposedly, when they round out their list of candidates. I guess if the media gets too much behind one guy, that's when they decide to big-time us and refuse to give the time of day to the guy that many in the media are saying deserves an opportunity, Chris.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the process. Media, hype, the connections you have in the league, I think are very important too. I do. Are you connected to the guy that's helping out the organization, make the hire? Is there somebody there? Is there somebody that can get in the ear of the owner and the GM that they trust? That's where a lot of these hires are made, and that's where I don't know if Eric Bieniemy is getting the benefit of the doubt in that department or anything of that nature. He was in college, he was with the Vikings. He certainly should have those connections, but at the same time, again, I don't think he's one of those guys, and part of the process or part of the problem here and why hasn't moved on. I don't think he's a politician that way. That's one thing I continually hear. So, and then from people that I trust that are credible. So that's where I think it's hurting him a little bit in that department. But yeah, it's amazing that we're sitting here and he hasn't been hired, as we talked about. The optics are weird. Guys coaching lesser offenses and lesser teams are getting head coaching jobs, and Eric Bieniemy's not.
On one hand, I respect the integrity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when in Rome.
Right.
Because other guys are politicking and doing what they have to do
right.
to get these jobs. And again, there's only 32 of them. If you really want that job, you got to figure out what the pathway is to getting one. And maybe sometimes you have to set aside your own, I'm just going to be who I am. Sometimes you have to modify that approach to get that job that everyone else wants. And you've got to thread the needle just the right way to get that position over someone else who very much wants it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.